All Fire, No Smoke is our candid conversation as two military aviators sharing the unique experiences we've had in combat, reconnaissance, and demonstration flying.
Through personal stories, technical details, and laughter, we explore the challenges of balancing leadership, motherhood, professional life, all while offering inspiring insights for those who are trying to strike that work-life balance.
And so, as Merrill is aware, I had a decompression sickness incident where, in the 30-second version of this, is if Navy divers come up too fast, nitrogen comes out of solution in their, in their blood, and most frequently in their joints, because that's what's moving. And those nitrogen bubbles aren't supposed to be out of solution, and so they get in your joints and cause, significant pain and that kind of thing. So this is also a player for U-2 pilots. While we can get in our joints, it seems like it's more often in cardiovascular systems as well as in our brains, which no one has, at least that I'm aware of, really figured out exactly why, but that is what happens. And it's certainly with us not coming up too fast, but just kind of prolonged exposure. So blah, blah, long story short, that happened to me on a flight over Afghanistan. And I'll gloss over it because it's not the point, but the flight back was awful. And I felt really trapped in the cockpit. Ejecting wasn't even really an option, over Pakistan and stuff like that. Cause, having thoughts like, well, I would rather just pack it in with a jet than, have my head sawed off on Al Jazeera or something. So that led to an anxiety issue where whenever I felt trapped in the cockpit, once I started getting back in, I didn't realize it at the time, but I was basically having anxiety attacks. And the vicious cycle with anxiety is then you're like, oh God, I don't want that to happen again. And then you worry about it the night before, and then you have it again, and it gets worse, and it keeps getting worse and worse and worse and worse kind of thing. So it is this absolutely vicious cycle. And so finally it got to the point where like I couldn't do it anymore. I'd had a panic attack in the T-38 flying a ROTC student. And I was able to land safely, but I'm like, I feel like maybe I put someone else at risk, because you're distracted by this thing. And so I walked in and talked to my squadron commander and was like, hey boss, I have a problem. This is what's going on. And so the community was great. And so you start talking to someone for anxiety, and it was okay. It helped a little bit. But then I went off to school and then staff. But then the weird and just vicious thing about anxiety is it morphed then from not just being in the jet, but anywhere I felt trapped, including in social situations. So I had this super good fortune of going to school in the UK and then being an exchange officer with the RAF. And, speaking of kind of standing out, so you're different. So, here you're the American in the meeting. And, if they're having long, sort of more formal with their meetings and the door's shut, there's nothing preventing me from standing up and walking out of the door, but it would be odd, right? And you'd have to explain it. So I would feel, I guess, socially trapped. And then the same anxiety issues were happening there. And so had to fess up again. And then finally, it took seeing 2 or 3 people to finally get the right kind of mix. Cognitive behavioral therapy is great for anyone who's going through anything. Highly recommend it. Merryl, I'm not even sure if we've talked about this one. Right after I took over Wing Command at Beale, we had a suicide about 3 weeks in. A young 22-year-old in our maintenance squadron, and then 3 weeks later we had another one in the same squadron, and it was pretty awful. It was in the height of COVID, and so we had folks doing the 2 teams and the shifts, and you weren't getting a lot of social interaction and all that kind of stuff and all the things. So it was at that point, it was like, all right, well, mental health has taken 2 of our teammates, but COVID hasn't taken any. So for the maintenance group, we're dropping all the COVID stuff for just the maintenance group. You come in and you do a no-fly day and, pancake breakfast, and you talk to everyone and all this kind of thing. And so going back now to after the suicides and we're talking to the maintainers, I had no intent of telling that story because it was still a little raw and I was a brand new wing commander and you're still kind of getting, the hang of doing this sort of thing. But you could see our folks were just really angry, really frustrated. You talk to them, no one wanted to talk to you, and it just I had no intent of doing it, and then all of a sudden was standing there talking and just told that same story. And a lot of things happened after that. And as we're talking to folks afterwards, believe it or not, my command chief, best command chief in the Air Force, but she was awesome. We're then talking to folks, and folks are opening up more because of that, and like sharing even more raw feelings. And this one contract maintainer who had just separated after being a tech sergeant looked at me and basically he said, "Fuck you, go fuck yourself. You're standing up here with all this stuff." And so Tori, the command chief, she was sitting somewhere else and she heard that. She's awesome. She just came beetling right in and sat next to me and was like, "All right, somebody's telling the boss to fuck off. I got to sit right here." But then just spilled like all the things that were so upsetting and so frustrating. And a lot of these things like we had no idea about because they're just not what you get from the 06s or the 05s at a staff meeting. And, these were the things that were, eating these guys up. Including some of it, there was like, people keep telling us that if we're having issues and struggling to go talk to your boss and your supervisor, and they're like, "I'm sorry, but if you're a 19-year-old E2, your staff sergeant is freaking scary. There's no way." They're like, "In fact, I'd rather talk to you right now about it than my super scary ass, staff sergeant." And this is a whole long way of saying that I never thought that I was going to do that. And I didn't think that I had, the balls to stand up and sort of share something like that yet. I wasn't but then all of a sudden I was. And I mean, who knows if this is the case, but I feel like the changes that we made as a result then of these airmen afterwards, then just really opening up and unloading, including telling me and my command chief to go fuck ourselves. But that individual was great. I mean, fantastic. And really was like, "No, like this is what's going on." And we had no idea. And so the amount that you can go forward and learn and do something better. And so I think at least the most significant thing I've ever done as a leader was some of the changes that we made as a result of that specifically. So when we talk about empathetic or vulnerable leadership, like, yeah, man, all in. Don't get me wrong, it was freaking scary, and I was like, I can't believe I'm doing this, and all the things, and it felt like you're standing off the edge of a cliff, but it was like, it just absolutely felt right in the moment, and I think it probably was.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that story. That's awesome.
that's awesome.
Yeah, I think people need to hear that, and people in these leadership positions, especially in the times that we are in right now, which I think a lot of people would categorize as strange, that we need some openness without the anger. And there could be some anger in that, right? Because the response
Yeah.
was angry. But to be able to talk about things on such a candid level, to build that connection and to start building that trust, I think is very crucial during these strange times. So I think it would get us much further than we truly believe.
Yeah. I mean, it's amazing the doors that it opens. And then just even, I mean, I'm kind of going back to the paradigm of our young folks in the military, but I mean, I think it goes to anywhere. Like it turns out in our security forces squadron. So folks not familiar with it, this is basically like the police force on base. If someone's having an issue, it could just be as simple as like a broken ankle or something, but they get on the do not arm list if there's something going on mentally or physically that they shouldn't be carrying a weapon, and they feel like it's this scarlet letter, doing absolutely anything to avoid being on the do not arm list, kind of the same way it would be for us if we were, sick and, DNF, duties not including flying, no one tells the flight doc exactly how bad it really is, right? Because you're afraid of what they're going to do and that they're going to take you off
Absolutely.
flying and, all that kind of stuff. And then you're going to be the person that couldn't hack it or this, that, the other thing.
Absolutely.
But like, no, guys, like, it's fine. And like, even if you are on the do not arm list, like, let's go get the thing fixed, right? Like that's totally okay. I mean, when my whole thing happened, I was taken at, well, in fact, they DQ'd me for a second. The like basically medically said, no, you're never going to fly again, and had to come back. And you're like, but like, I got it. I'm not going to say I'm fixed, as Merrill has so aptly pointed out. I'm still weird. However, I'm a much better person than I was before. And it's like, guys, like, let's get this fixed. Like, it's okay. Like, so like the buzzword was, and who knows if people actually, rolled their eyes. We were like, the help seeking behavior, saying that you're having a problem, it makes you stronger. It makes you more courageous. It makes you better. Right. So I don't know. Like
Look,
I said, I think people might have rolled their eyes, but
I always loved your weirdness, so I didn't really notice any difference. But I have a question. Having that, um, you did the wing commander job after working for General Dunford. Um, how was it when you were going through this being DNIF? Because I remember during those times, and I remember what the flight doc said to you when you said you were having, you were one of a few pilots that were going through a lot of things during the times we were flying, right? So, and the answer was typically, "Oh, go have some wine and chill out." And it was like, "No, this is actually physiological. This is something that is causing significant issues now and potentially in the future."
yeah.
How did that translate into when dealing with General Dunford, the man who's 60 years old, who one day I'm gonna box in the ring, who's like this Marine that just runs all the time and is this force, and you're a speechwriter for him. How were you able to translate that into, I don't know, again, General Dunford was cool, but his tone, because you wrote these speeches for him and gave these recommendations. Were you able to weave some of that in, those thoughts, that experience? I know, another
Um,
softball question.
yeah, right. Thanks, man. So, I mean, at the risk of being repetitive, I mean, I think the best I can say is confidence, or like when someone says no, we're like, no, you know what? Like, we're going to get back on flying status, or, whatever it is. Um, Speech writing for General Dunford was probably one of the coolest things I've ever done. It was really neat, but I hadn't done anything like that beforehand, and so the kinds of things that really surprised me was it, like oftentimes, like typically what would happen is that you've got these things coming up and different events would get, there was four of us would get assigned, and then you would write an outline for where you thought you were going to maybe take it, and then hopefully be able to double check that with him before you went and wrote like a 30-page script. um, and so there was certainly, I'm not going to say it was easier, but it was easier to get on point with, what the main focus of his discussion should be. Because oftentimes, he would set out priorities in terms of what it was for the force, or, in terms of testimony, or those kinds of things. That was in 2016, 2017. So still significant casualties coming in. So talking to a lot of groups like Gold Star Moms and stuff like that. Uh, and so those things, you kind of knew what the emphasis was, but then being able to say it, as he would say, he would always ask, did you say this out loud to yourself? Because saying something out loud versus just reading it, you wouldn't think it, but it is very different. And so if the answer was no, it's like, we're not even going to talk about it. Go back and sit in a room and read this out loud to yourself. And then you'd be like, and then did you do it in a Southie Boston accent? You're like, I, I don't know how to do that.
He's from Boston.
Yeah. So he's from South Boston.
I'm throwing the gauntlet down now. I'm a Yankees fan, so let him know. We're gonna fight.
All right. Yeah. Yeah. So like you could know, okay, we're going to hit these three main points and that makes sense. But then to say it in a way that's somebody who's completely different, who has a completely different background and a cadence, that is different was just, it was a challenge. And then, once you kind of started to get the hang of it, you could do it. But then someone I remember gave me a recommendation once, which was really neat. And I just wouldn't have thought of, but for speechwriters in general, they're like, find a movie and find a character and, someone that you want, whoever you're writing for, like you want them to sound like that or kind of have that cadence or flow or whatever and listen to them and then, write it out and see what that looks like on paper then, because it's different. And so, I mean, there was just things like that you never would have thought of, kind of thing.
Was I have to ask, was there ever a time you gave him something and he looked at you, and I'm sure he was wearing glasses, and he just took his glasses off and he was just like, what's happening here?
Yeah. Yeah. Especially in the beginning, there was definitely some misses. And I remember it was one too where I'd stayed up and we hadn't had the chance to run like an outline by him, and it just complete swing and a miss. And so I always remember we'd sit there. I can picture the round table in his office with all the speechwriters there. And you're right, yes, the glasses. And so he would take his glasses off and look at you. And when he did that, you knew that it was either he was about ready to make a funny or he was about ready to ruin your day and be like, no, this isn't. So I remember there was one, and it was no kidding, like a 30 pager or something like that. And I had just completely missed where he had wanted to go. And it was this time it was a take off the glasses and no, but as ever, was very kind about it. Because people would talk about like, oh, it's really direct and all that kind of stuff, and I'm like, you folks haven't been in an aircraft, debrief. So like the man saying that this is what he's looking for, and this is why, and this is what he is looking for. Maybe it's a bit intimidating because of who he is, but like that's fine. I messed it up, and people are like, oh man, that's crazy. Are you okay? And you're like, you kidding me? He was really nice about that.
That's the confidence part. Like you can get your. I think if you haven't really worked in the Pentagon, if you have not at least one time had a general take their glasses off and look at you like that.
Yeah.
I think we've all been through that, and
Yeah.
you just get like face blasted, and you're like, yeah, all right, let's go back and get it done. All right, good talk, sir.
I worked for
right, to get totally wire brushed, but like that's not what he did. It was just like, no, like that's not what I was looking for. I have had it happen one time where he took it off and he made it funny. So I mean that was good too. Yeah.
I worked for a senator, and so I probably wrote questions for my senator to ask General Dunford when you were there in 2016. But,
right.
but whenever he took the glasses off, like in the middle of a speech, it meant he was not using any of the work that you had spent like the last 3 days doing. It's like, oh, he's going totally off script because he can't read. So it's just like you just see all your work crumble in front of you on C-SPAN, like live. So
right.
Anyway. I want to go back, Merrill. You called the U2 the land of the not quite right.
Absolutely.
Princess, 100%. Do you agree with that? Or do you have any examples of the land of the not quite right?
Well, I think if you go and have a drink with Merryl and I, it'll be obvious.
We should have sent you some like drinks ahead of time. I think you can tell us some stories. Are there any stories that you could tell us about Merrill that we would appreciate?
Yeah, well, so in our
yes.
pre-recording banter, of course, there was the for all the listeners out there, when I first met Merrill, I had just joined and I was a slick wing captain, so a brand new baby captain, and was probably like probably about 50 pounds lighter than I am right now. It was super skinny, and I remember walking past Merrill, was larger than life, but you were captain or a major, maybe.
I probably was a
Um,
major at the time.
yeah, and so more experience and all that kind of stuff. And she's just like, we're like walking past each other in the hallway, and it's just kind of like, oh yeah, hey. And she just reached out and just grabbed me by my armpits and lifted me up in the air and shook me and was like, "How much do you weigh?" Like, what? What's happening here?
First of all, I assaulted her, but in my defense, it was very nice to have another woman like just in the squadron, because at that time, Beth Larson was gone. I think Troy Devine was in DC. Susanna Moore may or may not have still been there. And so
Yeah.
like another female, like it was awesome. It was like, yay.
You just
happy.
start like bench pressing them.
Yeah, right. I was gonna say, so excited. She just wanted to shake me.
Like, oh, so cute. Yay.
My own little baby captain.
Yeah, right. Yeah. And then at one point, like, she's like, and then she threw me over her shoulder, and I was like, no, well, I was going like that way. Can we at least? But then that was, I don't think we got to, so we did deployments, through the Middle East, Korea, and all that kind of stuff all the time. And so for one of them, Merrill and I were roommates. But then I would be like her mobile officer, and she would come down the steps from the jet. And, I'm standing there being like, I don't know, like, what's your flight time, with like the pencil in my hand. And yeah, once again, just get picked up and thrown over the shoulder. At that point, it's just normal, right? But then other people are like, what's going on? Yeah, flight time was a 12.2. And,
Are you serious? 12? Wait a second. 12.2?
No, well, I guess that wouldn't. So let's see. In the desert at that time, I guess our missions averaged probably between 10 and like, I think we flew a lot of like 11.2, 11.3.
Holy crap.
Yeah.
Okay.
They were
So
long
now I
flights.
have to ask the question that I know everyone's thinking out there. How do you pee? Like, that's a long time to be sitting. And we talked about, you like apple pie is your favorite thing to eat. But like, how do you deal with like basic necessities when you're flying for 10 to 12 hours? Because that's insane.
Well, so has any of this, so the urine collection device, so the UCD, so for women, it was like a pad, and you could add air to the spacesuit, and it would essentially kind of like blow it or suck it out, and it would go out of the suit and then into a collection pan that was under the floorboards of the jet. The biggest thing I remember talking to my students about this is you get to know it, but I would fill mine up at about like 8 hours or so, because you got to keep drinking. You can't be dehydrated. And, it's got a small air relief spout. So, of course, as, it's filling, it can be allowed to continue to fill. And in the beginning, when you're not really sure, first of all, the technique on adding the air or when about your pan might be filled, you'll often get a pretty significant urine geyser out of that pressure relief thing. Because the pan's full, right? And then if you got like a huge amount of pressure in the suit, when it fills, it just like, right? And so
Yosemite.
Like, get a windshield wiper
right.
on your...
So you get this huge
Can't smell
geyser,
anything.
and the first couple of times it happened to me, it was so significant that it hit the canopy, which is quite cold, and then promptly froze.
Oh,
so
no.
You've got urine sickles on the canopy.
Sickles.
Yeah,
Stalactites.
It's so glamorous, isn't it? Being an Air Force pilot.
It's super sexy. Super sexy.
Super sexy, the thing that people are talking about. But then the thing that I didn't realize, and I feel like that's almost those who have and those who will, because if you're going to fill up the can't, that kind of thing, is to remember to break those stupid things off before you start descending and they start melting, because then they start dripping all over your helmet and your visor. So then, it's like 4 hours later or whatever, I'm coming down to land, and you're like, what the hell's, you're like, oh my God, it's my own piss that's melting. So if you make urine sickles in your cockpit, break them off before you start descending so they don't drip on you.
This is rain.
The audience right now is just like they have just scoffed. They're like, what? Yes, these are the sexiness of pilots. This
Mhm.
is why flying aircraft is not for the faint of heart.
Mhm.
Right, right. But like, yeah, Blaze, like you said, if only people knew. Like, I don't know if you had it when it was a fate, but in the summer you take the ROTC students and stuff up for incentive flights.
Yeah.
And then to get into the T-38 into the jet after one had been in there and had just like painted the cockpit with vomit.
Oh.
Right. And so like I always remember getting in one and like clearly like it had been cleaned, but there'd be like little dried bits of food
Ugh.
on the top of like
Nice.
the instruments, right? And I remember taking like first of all just putting your mask right on so you don't have to smell it. But then like taking my pencil and like flicking off just little like right.
No.
Or when it's really hot in Texas and you get in the jet and somebody's like ass sweat is still on the seat and you're like, oh.
Those are the best kind of flights where everything's still wet and soggy. You're like,
Yeah.
great. This is the
Right,
glamorous life. This is my flight pay. This is what I get
right,
paid
yeah.
extra bucks
They
for.
didn't have that in Iron Eagle.
We just think of like those planes are so old too. Like how many pounds of like dead skin cells and butt sweat are just weighing that thing down.
Oh
Duff.
man,
Yeah.
it's changing the CG.
Yeah. Was it like that in the F-16? I always view the F-16 as like more Gucci and stuff that maybe, I
Yeah.
don't know.
They had these like beautiful kind of cushy lambskin covers sometimes, but they
Oh,
get peed on and
it sounds
you'd
nice.
try to like
Well.
soak it off, and I don't think they could change them out. So it was kind of embarrassing when it got wet.
Right.
Yeah, it just, I don't know. It didn't smell like pee, but there's like a smell to the jet, and I'm sure that's part of it.
So going back, so Heather, real quick, I do have to remember the story that you told that ended up in my book about if I ask if you're naked, the answer is
No. Yes. No, the answer is yes. Sorry. Oh my God. Okay. So we totally got off track, but this is good. So I don't know if you guys had hit it, but also, I never did drugs until I joined the Air Force, but so Ambien, the sleep aids. So especially if you're shifting shifts, like flight schedules and stuff like that in the desert, I mean, really was key, as well as this what was it, the amphetamines in the cockpit, the go pills. But certainly very useful on the 11.5 or whatever it was. And so I think Merrill was flying and had landed, and so would have taken a go pill. And I was getting in bed already because I was flying the next day. And you kind of have a little bit of privacy, so there's like a sheet or whatever across the bed. And so Merrill comes in and she's just finished a mission and she's all excited and was all but about to pick me up and carry me across our little room or whatever. And she's like, hey, are you naked in there? I was like, no. And then Merrill was in bed with me, which I was not expecting. And it was like, I don't know, I think maybe she's trying to pick me up, or I don't know, like just like bench press me from like lying in the bed. And you're like, okay, so if Merrill ever asked you if you're naked in there, the answer is yes.
Yeah, because if you were, I would not have gotten in there, but
right,
you weren't, so I figured, let's get cozy.
I think you were trying to bench press me. No, come on, man! I got up in 6 hours to go fly. You put me down, please.
Gotta get the methamphetamine to wear off.
Yeah, pretty much. And I was one of those that was a avid user. Like flight docs would get mad. Why are you using the drugs? I'm like, why are you giving it to me? Like, don't give it to me if you don't want me to use them.
Yeah, it's completely allowed within the realm. But
it's allowed. It's amazing.
Yeah, I think it was like the opposite thing. Maybe like you had taken Ambien to go to bed early, and I was just coming back. But I remember there was a time where I walked into our room.
Yes, I remember this.
Yeah, and you were sitting at the little desk and had taken an Ambien, and I walked in and was like, "Hey, whatever." And you just swiveled on the chair and looked at me, and your eyes were mostly closed, and you just started laughing, and I was like waiting for your head to swivel around and for you to like throw up or something. Like she just turned around and was like, get you to bed, because if you're unconscious, I don't think I can get you there. Okay, up we go.
I never had those things. It was only, I think the third, I don't know what deployment that was, but the Ambien started doing weird, like people were doing weird stuff on Ambien. But
Yeah.
again, don't give it to me if you don't want me to try it.
Right. Yeah. No.
Yeah, well,
Yeah. For all your listeners, this was completely allowed.
totally
Legit.
legal.
Prescribed.
Yeah,
Yeah. All the things.
all the things. But you have to have fun.
Uncle Sam's
Yeah.
your drug dealer.
Nice. Yeah.
All right, so Heather, it has been amazing catching up, hearing your perspective about leadership and the vulnerability aspect, because I do agree with you on that. I find that the authentic nature of being a leader and showing that you also face certain things, I think builds trust with the people who you're leading just a lot faster. There breaks down a lot of barriers that are very quick to happen, and it makes you more effective, in my opinion.
Yeah.
So, any recommendations for people out there who are starting to lead or calls to actions that they could do to be able to work in whether their organization in the military during these times that would make them more effective?
Yeah. This is good. I mean, it's something that I would tell my National War College students. And one of the first ones is essentially what we're talking about, is the vulnerability, the empathy. Um, but a way to maybe wrap that up for folks is like, you don't have to know everything, nor are you necessarily supposed to. If I think in some of the leadership positions we got to, I mean, really, you kind of like decide things almost as most of what you spend your day doing, and so you need to listen and take in all of the things to ultimately make a decision. And if to make the best decision, you have to get the best information. And if no one wants to come to you because they're scared you're going to get yelled at or made fun of, or that you're just going to get ignored, or this, that, the other thing, or be in trouble for trying something new that didn't quite work out, like you're not going to get all those bits of information. And you need absolutely all of that in order to make the best decisions, but then also to take care of your folks. And if you take care of the team that you've been entrusted to lead, I mean, number one, that's the right thing to do. But number two, then they're going to, take care of you if they trust that, we're all doing this together. And that you're not going to, like I said, make fun of folks or anything like that, or punish them for trying, basically. Yeah, I feel like sometimes that's lost. If someone who is trying to do something really good and is trying, if they're trying to do the right thing, you got to have their back. So, yeah, take care of folks, have their back, and do that by being open to everything that comes to you. The next one was, I remember going into my first squadron command job, and the guy that I was replacing, Will Phillips, had just done an absolutely fabulous job. It was really great. And it was that feeling of like, oh my gosh, I've got such big shoes to fill. And at first I was kind of trying to do, not the ops, but in terms of interacting with people, like some of the stuff that he'd done. And then it was just kind of like, I mean, it was all amazing, but essentially don't fill other people's shoes, just fill your shoes. Because you come into something, and invariably, I mean, usually the person before you, did this great job. And that's great. So go in and learn from everything they passed on to you, but then go be you, like don't be them. And if you're trying to be someone else, it's, first of all, it's going to be exhausting. And second of all, I don't think you're going to be able to really blossom and be good at what you do. So, fill your shoes, not somebody else's shoes. And then I think one of the last ones is just, I mean, we've kind of hit it a whole bunch, but is listen more than you speak, right? I mean, really, it's sucking up all the information and then taking and going and doing the right things with that. Yeah, so I mean, I think listening more than you speak, and then as well as just kind of giving yourself the latitude as well to, you know what, I'm having a bad day. All these, almost all leadership positions are a huge amount of work, and that's fine, and we understand that. But if it's getting to a breaking point, it's okay to be like, you know what, I got to take a couple days of leave. Or my impression or my approach was always to make sure that you have some fun during the workday. Like, people always talk about the work-life balance, but then you have a job that just requires 12 hours a day or whatever it is, and you're like, yeah, blah blah blah, lip service. Like, sometimes it's just not possible, but then it's like, well, do work-life balance by like having fun throughout the day. I mean, so like my brand of filling my shoes, and anyone that's been a part of one of my offices is Nerf guns are huge. Stupid silly jokes, putting googly eyes on statues and stuff like that, just silliness. So, it should be some place where every now and again everyone bursts out in laughter because you put googly eyes on the urinal, and the guys come in. Like, who put googly eyes on the urinal? It's freaking me out, man.
That's awesome.
So I guess that would sort of be my spiel. It's got to be a fun place to go, because we talk about work-life balance, but when it's just impossible, then make that by having fun. And
I love
those
it.
are my wise words.
I love the words. It's beautiful.
Thank
The
you.
words.
And speaking of
Thank you guys. This was really fun. It's an honor to be hanging out with you two incredible ladies.
well, I think our listeners are going to enjoy it too. So we really appreciate you and your vulnerability today too. That was a really great story to share. And I think you continue to change people's lives even out of command. So thanks for doing that.
Totally. You're welcome. Happy to.
Aw. The views, thoughts, and opinions expressed by guests on All Fire No Smoke and their own do not necessarily represent the views and thoughts and opinions of the All Fire No Smoke production team, including hosts, producers, directors, and consultants. The content presented here is for entertainment and general information purposes only. The All Fire No Smoke name, trademark, and logos and all forms of content are the property of its owners, and its use does not imply endorsement of or opposition to any specific organization, product, or service, and cannot be used without the express written consent of All Fire No Smoke.